Chosen one. Heaven has spoken before, and now it speaks again. You remember the first time the message reached you. It came softly, like a whisper between moments, like something pulling on your spirit when the world was silent. You felt it, but brushed it aside. You said, "Maybe it's just my thoughts." But heaven does not waste words. And when God repeats himself, it means the time for silence has ended. This is not a coincidence. It is divine recall, a message returning because your destiny cannot be left unanswered. This second call is not just a reminder, it is mercy extending its hand one more time. Heaven saw how close you were to surrendering to fear, how you almost laid down what was sacred because it felt too heavy. Yet the same voice that once whispered now thunders softly again, saying, "I am not done with you." The reason this message finds you twice is because heaven will not let you miss what carries your name. There are seasons when heaven speaks once and waits, but when the word comes a second time, it means the window of obedience has opened again, briefly, urgently. You can feel it even now, the stirring inside you, the unshakable knowing that this moment is different. The angels assigned to your destiny have been repositioned. What you thought was over is being rewritten right before your eyes. Think back on every strange repetition in your life lately. The same dream, the same number, the same phrase echoing in different places. That was not randomness. That was heaven confirming the message. You kept asking for a sign, and heaven kept sending one. But this time, the repetition has purpose. God is saying, "I will speak until you answer." And you've walked through quiet battles. No one saw nights when your soul wrestled with confusion. Mornings when your strength felt borrowed. You looked around and wondered why you never quite fit, why peace always seemed one step away. The truth is, you are not meant to blend into this world's rhythm. You are marked by heaven's design. And this second message is proof that your calling has survived every storm. Listen carefully. Every delay you faced, every rejection that made you question your worth, was heaven's protection. When the path closed, it wasn't denial, it was redirection. When relationships fell apart, it wasn't punishment, it was pruning. And now, God is saying again what he said before. Step into the purpose I have prepared for you. And the word of the Lord came again, as written in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 33, verse 3. Call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know. This is the heartbeat of the message. Heaven is not just speaking, it is waiting for your response. You cannot ignore it this time. The same way the prophets heard the word of the Lord come a second time, so now you hear it through this message. It is reaching into the part of you that once believed but grew tired. The second call is revival. It is heaven saying, "Wake up, my warrior. The world still needs your light." Look around you, everything is shifting. The atmosphere feels charged because heaven is near. The second call means grace is still extended. It means God has not withdrawn his hand, but it also means there will not be a third. This is your moment to act. Heaven's patience is love. But love has timing. You cannot keep living halfway between comfort and calling. You are being summoned to step fully into obedience. Right now, take a deep breath and recognize this truth. You are not here by accident. You were guided here because heaven wanted your attention again. The same power that called prophets the same voice that raised the dead, the same authority that calmed storms. That is the voice speaking to you now. You are not watching a random message. You are standing in a divine intersection between your past delay and your future destiny. And if this message burns within you, that is confirmation. Heaven's fire has touched your heart again. Don't let this moment slip by. Type 777 inches, the comments, as a sign that you receive this second call, that you align with heaven's timing. Let it be your declaration. I hear you this time. Lord, if this word found you, share it. Someone else is waiting for their second call too. Like, comment 777 and subscribe so you remain connected to the flow of divine revelation. When heaven speaks twice, it means a new chapter is opening and you are standing right at the threshold. He's saying it again because he still believes in you. The first message was an invitation. This one is a command. The door is open, step through. You tried to forget the first message, didn't you? You told yourself it was emotion, a passing thought, something you could silence with distraction. Yet even in your quiet moments, it kept echoing in the background of your mind. That is what divine recall feels like, the sound that refuses to die. Heaven's voice lingers, not as noise, but as conviction. You can scroll, you can run, you can drown it under routine. But when heaven has chosen you, every silence becomes a reminder. This is the second call, because heaven saw how fear tried to bury faith in you. The first message was a whisper meant to awaken you gently, but this one comes as a shaking. God will whisper first, then he will call again in thunder, if he must. It's not to frighten you, it's to free you. The Almighty is pulling you back from the edge of compromise. You were slipping into comfort, drifting toward the familiar. But heaven has stepped in again. You've been living between two worlds, one where you appear fine, and another where your soul is restless. The reason your peace has been uneasy is because heaven refuses to let you settle where you don't belong. You can pretend for a season, but the anointing you carry will always expose false rest. This is the recall, the moment where God says, come back to the original blueprint. Do you remember how you once dreamed without fear, before disappointment built its walls around your hope? That purity of vision is what heaven wants to restore. The repetition of the message is not punishment, it is restoration. Heaven is calling back the version of you that believed anything was possible with God. The you who used to speak life, who used to feel the Spirit move through every word. Heaven misses that sound from you. And so, the message comes again to remind you that what you lost is not gone, it's waiting. The same fire that once burned in you has only been buried under ashes of distraction. Heaven speaks twice because some embers need a second breath to reignite. You have not failed. You have simply paused. But heaven has decided the pause ends now. The call that reaches you now is not external, it's internal. It's the Spirit whispering through your own heartbeat, saying, do not forget who you are. You were never meant to live halfway, half awake, half committed. You are either in the light or out of it. This second call marks the line. It is not about religion or ritual. It's about relationship, the divine one. You once felt so strongly that even your tears were prayers. Somewhere along the way, you let the noise of life convince you that you misunderstood the first call. But heaven's words never fade. They wait, the same way a seed waits under soil, unseen yet alive. So does every word God has spoken over you. And now, the soil is being stirred again. You feel it, the unease, the stirring, the realization that the same dream is coming back. That's not coincidence. That's destiny waking up. Heaven reminds you through the writings of the prophet Isaiah. Chapter 55, verse 11. So shall my word be that goes out from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. Every word God has ever spoken over your life still moves toward fulfillment. It cannot die. It cannot fade. It cannot return void. That is why the message comes again, because it was never finished. You thought it was over, but the promise still has breath. The word of heaven always circles back to what it was sent to restore. You are not small in this story. You carry an assignment that echoes beyond your lifetime. That's why the call repeats, because heaven will not entrust such weight to someone who is not ready. The first message awakened you. This one appoints you. The first call invited you to believe. The second one requires you to act. You may not understand every step, but obedience has never required full understanding, only surrender. God's voice doesn't come twice for entertainment. It comes for establishment. Something is being rooted in you now, something permanent. Heaven is making sure you hear, so you cannot say later that you didn't know. This is the divine recall, not of punishment, but of purpose. You were always meant to return here, to this moment of recognition. The first message was about awakening. This one is about alignment. The same God who called you before calls you again, because his plan has not changed, and neither has his love for you. The signs have been circling you for weeks, maybe months. They've shown up in numbers, in dreams, in words that strangers spoke without knowing why. You kept calling them coincidences, yet each one was heaven's handwriting. Every repeated symbol was a nudge from the unseen, the divine saying, "You missed it the first time, so I am sending it again." When heaven repeats, it's not random. It's proof that the assignment still stands. You have noticed how moments align strangely, the right person calling at the exact time you were praying for a sign. The same phrase appearing on different lips in the same week. The inner stirring that feels like déjà vu but carries weight. These are not tricks of the mind. They are signals of mercy. Heaven has been tracing patterns in your life to get your attention again. The repetition is divine language, the language of love and persistence. You asked for confirmation, and heaven replied with alignment. You prayed for proof, and the universe around you rearranged itself to echo what God already spoke. Yet you still questioned, is this really for me? Yes, it is. The signs are not chasing anyone else. They keep circling back to you because you are the one heaven intends to move. When you deny the divine message, life begins to feel restless. Your peace fades. Your joy becomes shallow, and even success feels empty. That restlessness is not punishment, it's grace. Heaven refuses to let you find contentment outside of your purpose. Every repeated sign is a tug on your spirit, a reminder that you were made for something higher than comfort. Heaven confirms through the wisdom written in the book of Job, chapter 33, verse 14, "For God speaks once, yes, twice, though man does not perceive it." You see, God often repeats himself because humanity is slow to recognize the divine in ordinary moments. The same sunrise, the same scripture, the same encounter. They all become sacred when the Spirit breathes meaning into them. Heaven doesn't waste repetition. Every echo has an assignment. Think about the things that have been repeating around you lately: numbers, songs, words, feelings, dreams. That repetition is revelation. Heaven is speaking in patterns because your spirit understands rhythm better than noise. The signs will continue until you acknowledge them, until you respond. The same God who spoke through burning bushes and angelic dreams is now speaking through the rhythm of your days. When you finally say, "I see it," something shifts. Awareness is obedience's doorway. Heaven cannot guide what refuses to listen. The reason the signs keep reappearing is because God is waiting for your recognition, not your perfection. Just your recognition. Once you see, the next step appears. You might say, "But I missed it before." No, you didn't. You were simply not ready to understand. Heaven times understanding as carefully as it times blessing. You are not late, you are right on schedule. The same message that circled back is proof of God's patience, not your delay. Now the Spirit says again, pay attention to what repeats. For in repetition, there is revelation. Look beyond the obvious. Listen beyond the noise. Heaven is not trying to confuse you, it is trying to confirm you. The echo in your life is not an accident, it's a calling disguised as coincidence. Before this section closes, take this moment to respond, not with fear, but with faith. Type in the comments, "I see it." Say it because you finally do. Say it because your eyes are opening to patterns that once looked meaningless. When you write those 3 words, you are declaring that you perceive what heaven is showing. You are no longer blind to signs that have followed you since the first message. This act may seem small, but it's prophetic. It's agreement. Heaven records recognition. For once, stop trying to rationalize the divine. Some things are not meant to be analyzed, they are meant to be received. The signs around you are not fragments of chaos, they are messages of mercy. The second time heaven speaks, it does not repeat itself out of frustration, it does so out of love. And when love speaks twice, destiny answers. Heaven moves slowly but surely, its timing never misses. Each repeated sign is a knock on the door of your awareness, urging you to look, listen, and finally awaken to purpose. Every repetition is mercy in motion, not judgment. God repeats himself to rescue you from delay, to keep you from the wrong path, and to pull you closer to divine direction. The message returning twice is heaven saying, "You still matter." The echo is proof that your destiny remains alive, waiting for your full surrender to the voice that calls again. There is a weight that settles over the heart when you delay the divine. It is not the heaviness of punishment, but of purpose pressing against hesitation. You can feel it in the quiet, that subtle ache that refuses to leave. The sense that something inside you is waiting to be released. Heaven counts the moments of your delay, not in anger, but in longing. For every time you hesitated, a door that was meant to open stood waiting, still unlocked, still patient. The weight of delay is not measured by days, but by opportunities postponed. Heaven never withdraws its promise, it simply pauses it until obedience returns. Every divine assignment moves on the rhythm of surrender. When you stop moving, so does the flow of favor. That is why your spirit feels unsettled, because heaven's timing continues. Even when yours doesn't. You told yourself you were waiting for confirmation, for a clearer sign, for the right moment. But heaven has already spoken twice. What you call waiting, heaven calls delaying. The word has been released. The only thing left is your response. Grace has carried you through the first delay. But even grace carries a clock. When you delay long enough, the enemy begins to whisper comfort into compromise. He tells you that delay is safety, that waiting longer will make obedience easier. But you know, deep down, that isn't true. Delay becomes decay when it stretches beyond its season. The longer you linger, the heavier your spirit becomes. Because divine timing is not just about when, it's about now. Heaven reminds you through the wisdom in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 11, verse 4, "Whoever watches the wind will not plant, whoever looks at the clouds will not reap." And those words are a mirror for your hesitation. The one who studies the storm too long misses the planting season. You've been watching the wind, waiting for calm. But faith does not wait for perfect conditions. Heaven moves through storms, not around them. When God speaks twice, it's because He's ready to move now. Even if everything around you still looks unstable, the weight you feel in your chest is not fear, it's divine urgency. It's the Spirit saying, "If you would only take one step, I would carry the rest." Yet so often you overthink the path that was never meant to be fully understood. The call of heaven is rarely logical. It requires courage, not calculation. Look at your life and notice how certain doors keep staying half open. You start to move, then retreat. You plan, then pause. You promise, then postpone. But delay breeds doubt, and doubt suffocates destiny. Every time you delay, your faith becomes thinner, your fire dimmer. Heaven's patience is long, but it is not endless. There comes a point where silence will replace reminder, not out of punishment, but because heaven refuses to compete with your hesitation. It is time to stop confusing peace with procrastination. Sometimes what feels like peace is only the comfort of avoidance. True peace doesn't come from standing still, it comes from stepping forward into obedience. Heaven cannot bless what you refuse to begin. The heaviness that follows your delay is meant to wake you every sleepless night. Every whisper of, "You should have done it," is mercy disguised as discomfort. Heaven will trouble you until you move. Not because you've failed, but because you are too close to destiny to be left behind. The Spirit does not repeat Himself for no reason. This second call is not a reminder, it's a rescue. You are being pulled out of hesitation before it hardens into disobedience. The weight you feel is heaven's way of keeping you from drifting into forgetfulness. It's not a burden meant to break you, but one meant to birth you. God does not measure time as man does. To Him, your delay is still redeemable. You can recover years in a moment of surrender. You can regain everything that hesitation stole by simply saying yes. Heaven's message comes again to remind you, redemption still stands ready. The delay has taught you discernment, but now discernment must lead to action. You know enough to move, you have heard enough to obey. The next season does not begin when you feel ready, it begins when you respond. Every moment you linger, destiny waits in silence, watching for your movement. The weight pressing on your heart is not punishment, it's purpose, demanding expression. Heaven's message returns a second time because delay is running out of room. The wind will not wait forever. You are not being scolded, you are being summoned. The ache you feel is not guilt, it's the echo of your calling pressing against time. When heaven repeats, it is not because it was unheard, but because it refuses to give up on you. There is a battle inside you, the war between comfort and calling. One side whispers, "Stay where it's safe." The other says, "Step where faith begins." You can feel the pull between the two, can't you? The familiar feels warm, predictable, and quiet. But somewhere, deep within, something holy stirs, pushing you toward what's uncomfortable yet divine. That stirring is heaven moving. It is easier to stay, where nothing demands change. Yet comfort is a soft cage. It holds you gently, but keeps you small. The Spirit doesn't live in safety. He moves through surrender. You were never designed to remain in the shallow end of your destiny. Heaven calls you into deeper waters, not to drown you, but to reveal that you can walk where others sink. Sometimes God shakes your comfort so that your courage can wake up. You might lose people, jobs, or routines that once made you feel secure. Don't see it as loss, see it as pruning. When heaven removes, it's only making room for what fits your next level. Comfort hides potential, calling reveals it. The voice of God whispers again through the scriptures recorded in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16, verse 25. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. That verse doesn't ask you to give up life. It asks you to exchange a small one for a divine one. Heaven isn't asking you to live without. It's inviting you to live beyond. The things you hold on to tightly control. Certainty, routine, are often the very weights keeping your wings from unfolding. And this is the part where heaven speaks gently but firmly. Your obedience doesn't only bless you, it blesses others. Every act of faith creates ripples beyond what you see. When you share this message, when you like or subscribe, you're adding another flame to the circle of light that travels farther than your reach. Each small act is a spark. Each spark keeps someone else from going cold in the dark. You may not realize it, but the reason this message finds you is because someone before you helped it travel further. Someone has solved it. And now you're being strengthened by their obedience. That's how heaven's economy works, not with demand, but with devotion. And if your heart ever feels moved to support this light, not by pressure, not by guilt, but by genuine alignment, think of it as watering the tree whose shade you rest beneath. A drop from you keeps its roots alive, letting it shelter others, still wandering in the sun. If this message has poured peace into your spirit, let gratitude pour back in your own way. A share, a subscription, or even a quiet offering. Each one is oil keeping this lamp burning. Just as streams keep rivers alive, your participation through a simple like, a small comment, or a heartfelt donation keeps this river of words flowing into hearts that need it. Heaven measures generosity not by the size of the gift, but by the sincerity of the heart. But remember this truth: even if you never give a coin, even if you only listen in silence, you are still loved, still chosen. What heaven seeks most from you is your yes. The rest flows naturally. Let your actions be guided by peace, not pressure. You are invited, not obligated. If this voice strengthens you, stay connected, subscribe, share, and let this current of faith keep running through you. Your presence here is already a gift. When you share light, you're not promoting a name, you're spreading a flame. When you choose to stay connected through subscribing, supporting, or even praying, you become part of a movement greater than algorithms or screens. You become a messenger. You are not being asked to do something unnatural. You are being invited to keep the river flowing. Let it remain voluntary, beautiful, and holy. If it blesses you, let your gratitude speak through action, however it wishes to express itself. That is the language heaven understands best. The battle between comfort and calling is not about sacrifice, it's about exchange. You give up what limits you to receive what lifts you. You release what's temporary to hold what's eternal. And in that exchange, you'll find your peace, your purpose, and your power. Let your faith move, not out of fear, but out of freedom. Heaven repeats itself because it doesn't want you to settle for less than divine fullness. This message is not just a reminder, it's an invitation to live lighter, freer, and braver than before. You keep seeing the same number appear on clocks, receipts, even in the rhythm of your days. It's been following you quietly, showing up like a whisper written in digits. You've wondered if it means something, if maybe it's just coincidence, but heaven never repeats for nothing. When the same number returns, it carry divinaton. It's not luck, it's language. This number, 999, has been circling you because heaven is speaking through completion. It is the signal that something long delayed is now reaching its final stage. Every prayer, every tear, every test that once felt endless has brought you here to the threshold of closure and new beginning. Heaven uses numbers as markers in time, as if to say, you've learned what you needed. Now it's time to step forward. End of trap. This is not numerology. It's divine synchronization. Heaven communicates through signs that align with the Spirit, not superstition. 999 is not a charm, it's a confirmation. It means the circle has come full, and what was incomplete will now find its end. The doors that once stayed half open are about to close, not in loss, but in fulfillment. You are not losing anything by stepping forward. You are simply being released from what can no longer carry you. Heaven repeats this number to remind you that you are ready to stop clinging to old seasons, ready to move from waiting into walking. The eternal voice echoes again through the sacred pages of the book of Revelation. Chapter 21, verse 5. Behold, I am making all things new. Learn. This is the essence of 999, the moment heaven declares, it is finished, and it begins again. You are standing in that in-between space where endings kiss beginnings, where grief meets grace. The reason you're seeing this number so often is because heaven wants you to recognize your transition point. For so long, you've been living in almost healed, almost ready, almost free, but almost ends now. Every repetition of 999 is a divine exhale, a reminder that heaven has already written the next chapter and is waiting for your step into it. You've been faithful through pain, persistent through confusion, obedient through silence. And now heaven sends this number not as a warning, but as a reward. You're being told, the old cycle is complete, the lesson is learned, the burden can fall. It's time to mark this revelation, not for show, but as a declaration that you hear heaven's timing. Type 999 inches, the comments, not as superstition, but as an act of spiritual recognition. You are saying, I release what was, and I welcome what's next. When you write 999, you are symbolically closing one book and signing the first page of another. You are aligning your spirit with heaven's timeline. You are declaring that you will no longer resist endings, because endings in God's hands are simply disguised beginnings. Let's be clear, heaven is not asking you to rush, but to release, to let go of the weight that has overstayed its purpose. The past has been a teacher, but it cannot be your home. Every time you see 999, remember, grace is inviting you to finish well. It's the number of closure and rebirth, the moment when heaven says, you've walked far enough in this chapter, turn the page. You have outgrown what used to define you. The doors that shut now are divine punctuation marks, not periods of despair, but commas of continuation. So when the number returns again, see it as heaven's whisper of confirmation. You did not miss it. You completed it. Every test that once felt endless now carries meaning. Every prayer that felt unanswered was building your endurance for this exact moment. 999 means heaven is sealing your past with peace and opening your future with favor. The circle has completed its spin, and what once broke you will now bless you. When you notice it next time on your phone, your clock, your path, smile, whisper gratitude. You are being reminded that endings are sacred and that God never leaves a story unfinished. Completion is not silence, it's a new sound beginning. And heaven, through the language of numbers, is saying it again, so you won't forget. It's done. Step forward now. And the number 999 glows like the final sunrise of a long night, not ending light, but transforming it. What fades isn't dying, it's becoming something purer, stronger, eternal. When heaven closes a chapter, it leaves light between the pages, the memory of grace, the echo of growth, the whisper that every ending still belongs to love. You have wondered why heaven had to repeat the message, why it had to come again in this season. After so much time, after so many lessons, the answer is simpler than you think, because now you are ready. The message did not change, but you did. What once frightened you no longer holds the same power. What once felt too heavy now fits your shoulders. The divine repetition is not redundancy, it is recognition. Heaven is saying, this is your time. When the message first came, your spirit trembled. You were still healing, still uncertain, still caught between who you were and who you were becoming. You heard the words but could not yet hold their weight. Heaven never sends more revelation than your heart can carry. The first time was the seed. This second time is the harvest. There are seasons when God hides you, not to withhold your destiny, but to prepare you to handle it. You may have called those hidden years silence, but heaven called them strategy. Every quiet day was shaping endurance. Every delay was weaving discernment. The second message has arrived because the soil of your spirit is now strong enough to sustain what it once could not. You had to break before you could carry this. Strength forged without struggle is fragile, and calling without crushing breeds pride. Heaven waited until your heart learned to bow before allowing your voice to rise. That's why this moment feels different, because you are no longer striving for approval. You are walking in assurance. The prophet Daniel once wrote of a time when the word of the Lord was delayed, yet not denied. Angels fought in unseen realms to deliver it. Heaven's repetition in your life carries that same warfare. The word has fought through resistance, doubt, and distraction just to reach you again. You are not forgotten. You are pursued. It is written in the book of Psalms, chapter 66, verse 10, "For you, God, tested us, you refined us like silver." That is what has been happening in your soul, refining. Fire never comes to destroy silver. It comes to reveal its brilliance. You have been in the fire long enough for the impurities of fear and pride to burn away. Now, what remains is clarity. The reason heaven repeats its call is because the mission has matured. What was once too fragile to complete is now fully formed. The message you are hearing again carries more authority because your obedience has been seasoned by endurance. Heaven trusted the delay because the delay shaped you into someone unshakable. Sometimes the second message doesn't bring new instructions, it brings new identity. You're no longer the same person who heard the first one. That old version of you couldn't have carried the assignment. This version can. You've been refined in silence, strengthened in storms, and steadied in surrender. Now, heaven says again, rise, not to chase, but to carry, not to prove, but to proclaim. This is not a restart, it's a reactivation. The same fire that once flickered inside you has been reignited by repetition. The difference now is that you understand why you burn. Do not despise the time it took to return here. Heaven is never late. It is deliberate. The first message found the seed in you. The second finds the tree. And trees don't rush to grow. They root first. That is what heaven has been doing, rooting you deeper so that your fruit will last longer. Everything that confused you in the first season will make sense in this one. Every unanswered why will meet its now. Heaven doesn't just repeat messages, it redeems them. The word comes back stronger because it comes through you wiser. This is why you can sense peace even when the unknown still stretches ahead, because this time, fear no longer drives you. The second message comes to confirm that you are ready to walk where you once only dreamed. Heaven is not reminding you of failure, it is announcing fulfillment. The hidden reason behind the repeat is not correction, it's completion. Heaven has circled back to you because the cycle of preparation is finished. The same message that once felt impossible now feels inevitable. That is how you know transformation has taken place, when what once terrified you now feels like truth. So, take this repetition as reassurance, not rebuke. Heaven does not send echoes into emptiness. It speaks again only when something has grown strong enough to respond, and you, the refined, awakened, and ready version of you, are finally able to hear not just the words, but the weight behind them. You've seen doors close. Lately, some you prayed would open. Others you never expected to shut. Opportunities you thought were certain have vanished. And paths you believed were permanent have ended abruptly. It's felt unfair, confusing, even cruel. But what if every closed door was heaven's rerouting, not rejection? What if what feels like loss is actually divine protection? You see, heaven doesn't always guard you by giving. Sometimes it guards you by denying. It knows what you cannot see, the traps behind opportunities that look perfect. the distractions hiding behind invitations, the exhaustion waiting at the end of an easy road. A closed door isn't punishment, it's preservation. God is not withholding blessings, He's withholding burdens disguised as blessings. You've been mourning the doors that didn't open, but if you could glimpse what waited behind them, you would fall to your knees in gratitude. Heaven's redirection is mercy in motion. What looks like delay from earth often looks like defense from heaven. You are not being blocked, you are being built. Every time a door shut in your face, heaven whispered, "Trust me," but you couldn't yet see the pattern, how every no was actually a not there. You thought it meant you failed. Heaven meant you were being moved. The difference between rejection and redirection is perspective. God sees the path from above. You only see it step by step. There is beauty in the detour. Roads that bend still lead forward. You may have been frustrated when something slipped through your fingers, but grace was guiding the fall. The doors that close abruptly are heaven's way of preventing slow destruction. It hurts at first, but it heals in time. It is revealed through the writings of the Apostle Paul in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. Is one, you see, all things includes the doors that close, the plans that crumble, the seasons that shift. Heaven wastes nothing. Every disappointment is a divine rerouting, redirecting you to alignment. The pain of losing what you wanted is often the price of gaining what you need. You've been asking, why would God take that away? But perhaps the better question is, what was He making room for? Heaven never subtracts without preparing to multiply. The spaces left empty are invitations for something purer, stronger, more fitting for the next season of your purpose. Maybe you thought you were ready for that relationship, that opportunity, and that door, but heaven saw the hidden fractures. Sometimes the greatest mercy is the one that feels like heartbreak. Sometimes divine love has to hurt your plans to save your purpose. When you look back, you'll see that every door that closed led you somewhere necessary. Each redirection carried you to an intersection you never would have found on your own. The roads that felt like wrong turns were actually shortcuts to destiny. Heaven's interruptions are not accidents, they are interventions. God's hand has been steering you through invisible corridors, guiding you away from counterfeit callings. You were never meant to stay where you almost settled. Every time you lost something, heaven replaced it with clarity. You've been praying for open doors, but heaven is teaching you to trust closed ones too. The sound of a door closing is not final, it's simply the hinge of direction turning. The noise that once made you cry will one day sound like music because you'll understand what it saved you from. Your life has not been derailed, it's been divinely redirected, what you call a dead end. Heaven calls a doorway hidden in disguise. God's paths rarely look straight because destiny is built in curves and turns. If it were simple, faith wouldn't grow. So take a deep breath and let peace return. You haven't missed your opportunity, you've just been rerouted to the one that was truly meant for you. The delays have been heaven's design to protect your alignment. You are not wandering aimlessly, you are being positioned precisely. Every closed door carries the fingerprint of God's protection, and when the right door opens, you'll realize why every other one had to stay shut. What you thought was rejection was actually redirection. And what felt like the end was really a beginning wrapped in wisdom. Heaven has never forgotten you. It's simply leading you through the safest route home. Sometimes protection looks like loss until time reveals the truth. The doors that closed behind you were never exits, they were shields. Heaven doesn't trap you, it redirects you toward what cannot fail. You've heard the message twice now, but something inside you still wrestles. You know what heaven is asking, yet part of you hesitates, questioning if you have the strength to follow through. The Spirit's voice feels close, but so does resistance. That tension you feel is not confusion, it's conviction. Heaven is calling you to end the argument between your faith and your fear. You've been told before that obedience is costly. And it's true, but disobedience costs more. The weight of resistance always presses heavier than the risk of surrender. Every time you ignore that quiet nudge inside, your spirit grows tired, because it was created to move with heaven, not against it. Mercy has been patient with your hesitation, but mercy will not beg forever. The voice that once whispered gently now speaks with firmness, not out of anger, but urgency. Heaven's patience is love, stretched to its furthest point. The time for deciding is closing. The time for doing is here. The voice of God speaks through the ancient words of the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 7, verse 23. Obey my voice, and I will be your God, and you will be my people. Walk in all the ways I command you, that it may go well with you. This verse is not a command wrapped in threat. It's an invitation clothed in promise. Obedience isn't slavery, it's safety. To walk with God is to walk with peace. You are not being demanded into submission, you are being drawn into alignment. Resistance has a cost. It dulls discernment, numbs conviction, and blinds you to favor. Heaven doesn't punish silence, it withdraws revelation from it. That's why this moment feels heavier than before, because heaven is giving you one more chance to move before the window closes. You are one act of obedience away from breakthrough, but also one more rebellion away from blindness. The line is thin, and heaven is watching how you step. The grace that called you once is calling again, but it carries weight now, not suggestion, but command. Every time you ignore the Spirit, you teach your heart to tolerate distance. Every time you delay, you train your ears to live without the voice that gives life. This is why heaven speaks twice, because love refuses to watch you drift into silence. The Spirit doesn't repeat warnings to frighten you, but to free you. He knows how close you are to dulling what once made you alive. The second call comes to save you from that slow fading, to awaken what hesitation tried to bury. Heaven will not force you. That's not its nature. The Father offers choice, always. But choice carries consequence. You cannot keep asking for confirmation when conviction has already spoken. The repetition was the confirmation. Now, heaven waits for your action. You may think you have more time, but mercy has its limits when ignored. Grace gives space, but rebellion builds walls. And once walls become too high, even blessings can't climb them. That's why the Spirit presses so hard now. Heaven sees what you cannot, how close you are to drifting past recognition. This is your moment to respond, not with empty promises, but with surrender. Not with half-hearted maybe, but with yes. The heavens are quiet, watching for your answer, because obedience is the language that moves angels. Now, if your heart feels that trembling, that holy unease, it's not fear, it's awakening. The Spirit is near, calling your name again. This is not coincidence, This is covenant. Let your response be simple, yet powerful. Type, I choose now. And say it not as a ritual, but as a declaration. Those 3 words are not just text, they are testimony. You are saying, I will not delay again. When you write them, heaven records it as obedience in motion. Don't underestimate the act. Heaven honors recognition. Your words become your signature on divine paperwork, already waiting for your consent. Resistance ends where surrender begins. Once you say yes, doors you thought were locked will open. Peace you thought was gone will return. And clarity will replace confusion. That is the promise behind the warning. Heaven doesn't want to frighten you. It wants to free you. Let the trembling in your heart become movement, not hesitation. Let your words become agreement, not avoidance. You've heard the call twice. Make this the moment heaven hears you answer. Let this be the moment heaven writes, answered, beside your name. Every yes whispered in faith rewrites a history once marked by hesitation. This is your beginning, not your end. The echo of obedience travels farther than you think. It becomes light for others still trapped in indecision. Your surrender is not small. It is a torch that awakens courage in hidden hearts. When heaven speaks twice, it's never only to warn, it's to invite you into covenant. This is the moment where the second call becomes a promise, not just a message. You've heard the words, felt the pull, and now something within you knows this isn't about hearing anymore, it's about holding. The second message is heaven's way of saying, I'm still here, waiting for your yes. You've carried this calling like a letter you never opened. It's been sealed with divine timing, waiting for the right season of your courage. Now the seal breaks. The light enters. The words you once only heard now become truth written on your spirit. This is where the warning transforms into a covenant, a holy partnership between heaven's promise and your obedience. Heaven whispers again through the words written in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 36, verse 26. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. That's what this covenant feels like. Not transaction, but transformation. Heaven isn't demanding perfection. It's replacing your fear with tenderness, your hesitation with softness. The second message doesn't come to threaten you into faith. It comes to heal the part of you that stopped believing. You see, every covenant begins in the quiet, in the moment when you choose to answer with action. When you share truth, you help it live longer. When you support light, you help it reach the next soul still wandering in shadow. The same way a single candle can ignite thousands without losing its flame, your small action, a share, a like, a word of kindness becomes part of heaven's wildfire. When you like, you're not feeding an algorithm, you're acknowledging alignment. When you share, you're sending this light into the corners where someone's hope is flickering. When you subscribe, you're saying, I want to stay connected to what nourishes my spirit. And if ever your heart feels moved to sow into this flow, to give, to donate, to pour oil into the lamp that lights your nights, know this, it is not a demand. It's an offering of gratitude, a way to say, I've received something here, and I want someone else to receive it too. Think of it like planting a tree in soil that once sheltered you. You give a seed not because you owe the tree, but because you honor its shade. The next soul who rests beneath it will never know your name, but heaven will. Every bit of support, no matter how small, becomes a drop of oil, keeping the flame alive. This light doesn't belong to one person. It's a shared torch passed through willing hands, and your touch keeps it burning. You are part of this mission's heartbeat, a pulse of generosity flowing through unseen channels. There's no pressure here, only permission. Permission to participate in what heaven is doing through you, around you, and beyond you, whether through prayer, through sharing, or through giving. You are echoing heaven's covenant. We will not let the light go out. Oh, when you respond, it's not about meeting a need, it's about multiplying meaning. This message travels further, not because of algorithms, but because of alignment, hearts aligning with heaven's rhythm. Each person who receives, shares, or supports becomes a thread in the divine tapestry of hope. And maybe you're thinking, but what if I can't give much? Then remember, heaven measures not by amount, but by intention. A single drop of faith weighs more than oceans of indifference. Your smallest act of kindness carries eternal weight when it's done in love. Stay connected to this light. Subscribe if your heart feels drawn. Share if you sense someone needs it. And if the Spirit whispers, give as freely as you've received. Every gesture of support becomes another spark heaven uses to ignite awakening. The covenant is not built on obligation, but on love, the kind of love that multiplies when shared, the kind that refuses to stay hidden. Heaven isn't asking for transaction, it's offering transformation. You are not being asked to pay for light, you are being invited to keep it shining. What a beautiful invitation that is. The second message is heaven's promise that your obedience is not forgotten and your generosity will never be wasted. Everything you pour out in faith returns in ways no coin can measure. Every drop of oil becomes light in someone else's night. When you give, when you share, when you stay, you are saying yes, not just to this message, but to your own becoming. This is your covenant moment, not pressure, not persuasion, just pure participation in what heaven is doing. The flame will continue to burn because you chose to hold it. There are seasons that feel like silence, long stretches where heaven seems distant, where prayers echo but answers hide. You've known that silence. You've lived it. Nights when you looked up and said, "Are you still there?" Days when your strength ran thin, and hope became something you had to borrow. Yet what you called silence, heaven called shaping. You see, silence is never absence. It is divine surgery. It's the sound of heaven working in depths you cannot see. When God hides his hand, it's never to harm, it's to heal. The quiet seasons are where he reorders your heart, where he takes the fragments of what life broke and forges them into focus. Heaven was never ignoring you, it was investing in you. There were days you thought heaven forgot. But the truth is, heaven was studying your endurance. Every unanswered prayer became a test of trust. Every delay, a lesson in depth. Heaven uses stillness like a sculptor, uses clay pressing, shaping, waiting. The same hands that carved mountains have been carving you, gently, patiently, precisely. You are not the same person who entered the silence. You emerged different, softer, wiser, stronger. That's the paradox of divine quiet. It feels like death, but produces life. What you lost in noise, you gained in knowing. The old version of you chased answers. The new one has learned to rest in assurance. Heaven reveals this mystery again through the words of the prophet Isaiah. Chapter 45, verse 3. I will give you the treasures of darkness, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know that I am the Lord. Lo, the treasures of darkness, that's what silence holds. It doesn't seem like treasure at first. It feels like exile. But once your eyes adjust to the dimness, you begin to see what noise always hid. The gold of understanding, the silver of peace, the jewels of endurance. You thought heaven was punishing you by being quiet, but heaven was preparing you. Had every prayer been answered when you wanted? You might have mistaken convenience for calling. The wait was never wasted. It was writing strength into your soul. Heaven's silence was teaching you the difference between being ready and being willing. In the quiet, you discovered what can't be shaken. People may have left. Plans may have failed. But something holy stayed, that unexplainable, knowing that God still holds everything. That's the foundation silence builds, faith that doesn't depend on visible proof. The reason heaven is speaking again now is because the shaping is complete. What was once hidden has matured. You've learned to hear God not only in thunder, but in whisper. That's graduation, when you no longer need signs to believe. Sometimes God hides himself not to withdraw, but to deepen the conversation. When he stops speaking loudly, it's because he trusts you to hear quietly. Silence was heaven's way of stretching your spiritual hearing, teaching you to recognize presence without proof. And though it felt endless, silence has a purpose. It breaks pride, melts fear, and clears the noise around truth. In the quiet, heaven detoxes your soul from everything that distracted you from destiny. Looking back now, you can trace the pattern. Every silent season carried a hidden assignment. When you were crying, you were being cleansed. When you were doubting, you were being deepened. When you were waiting, you were being woven. Heaven's silence is not empty, it is full of intention. You were never alone. Even in your loneliest nights, heaven was nearer than your own breath. The same spirit that seemed still was holding every heartbeat steady, whispering between seconds, I'm still here. You didn't hear because the noise of pain was loud. But heaven never left. Now, as the message repeats, you can finally see why heaven stayed quiet, because you needed to grow roots before you could bear fruit. Flowers bloom fast and fade, but trees last through storms. Heaven was making you a tree, not a fleeting beauty, but an enduring one. The years of silence were not wasted years, they were foundational ones. Every unanswered prayer was a seed waiting for divine timing. And now, heaven says, the hidden season is over. The soil has done its work. You carry within you the proof that silence is not abandonment, it's apprenticeship. What you learned in the stillness will sustain you in the storm. Heaven didn't stop speaking. It was simply teaching you to listen differently. The silence was never empty. It was sacred space. What you mistook for distance was God's breath between sentences, pauses not to end the story, but to let its truth sink in. There comes a moment when heaven confirms what you already sense, when signs, dreams, and timing all converge. That is the season you've stepped into now. The repetition of the message is heaven's final seal over your obedience. You're not hearing this again by coincidence. You're hearing it because the completion is near. The second message was about awakening. The silence was about shaping. But this is about fulfillment. Heaven is saying, "You've passed the hidden tests. Now watch what obedience releases." What once seemed uncertain is now aligning with precision. Everything that resisted you is beginning to bow. Not because the path is easy, but because heaven has ordained your steps. The number that keeps finding you now, 444, is not random. It carries the weight of divine establishment. It speaks of stability after shaking, of foundations being secured after storms. Heaven repeats numbers not to entertain curiosity, but to communicate confirmation. And when you see 444, it's heaven whispering, "You are standing on ground I have already blessed." When you've been through seasons of tearing down, of losing and learning, but 444 means rebuilding has begun. What was once scattered is now coming together. What was once fragile is now being fortified. Heaven is reconstructing your destiny with precision, aligning people, moments, and opportunities like stones in a temple. You are that temple, and heaven is sealing its foundation. It was written long ago in the book of Isaiah, chapter 54, verse 11, "O afflicted city, lashed by storms and not comforted, I will rebuild you with stones of turquoise, your foundations with sapphires." That's the promise hidden inside 444, not replacement, but restoration. God doesn't rebuild what He doesn't intend to fill with glory. The very places in you that once broke are becoming the places where His strength dwells. The storms didn't ruin your structure. They revealed which parts needed rebuilding. You may still see cracks and wonder, "How can I stand again after so much loss?" But heaven answers, "Because I'm the builder, not you." You are not repairing your life alone. The architect of eternity is restoring every room. 444 means the foundation is secure. It means heaven is preparing you for long-term stability, not temporary sparks. Think of how builders measure, remeasure, and align before placing the cornerstone. That's what the waiting has been. Heaven checking alignment, ensuring that your character can hold your calling. You've been stretched, not to punish you, but to strengthen your frame. Heaven does not construct palaces on sand. It digs deep before raising high. Now, the digging is done. The foundation stands. You will see signs of balance, favor, and calm returning, not because everything is perfect, but because you are. Heaven's peace is establishing its roots in you. The chaos that used to shake your heart will no longer find space there. When you see 444 again on your clock, a sign or a quiet moment, remember, it's not a coincidence, it's a confirmation. It's heaven telling you, the building will stand. You're being established not by luck, but by purpose. And now, as a prophetic declaration of recognition and faith, type 444 inches, the comments. Do it not out of superstition, but out of spiritual awareness. You are saying, I'm ready to be established in what heaven has built for me. End of. When you write it, imagine placing your signature on the blueprint heaven drew long ago. 444 is your acknowledgement that the storms did not destroy you. They refined you. It's your public yes to divine stability, to peace after chaos, to permanence after shaking. Heaven honors such declarations, not because they're typed, but because they're believed. Every time you write it, you're marking agreement with the unseen architecture of your destiny. Let this number remind you that even foundations once cracked can be made stronger than before. That your life, every scar, every lesson, every delay has been a construction site for something eternal. Heaven is the builder, and you are his masterpiece under restoration. You've been through shaking, but now comes settling. You've been tested by storms, but now comes strength. The repetition of 444 isn't to warn you, it's to reassure you you're finally standing where I wanted you all along. When heaven builds, it builds to last. You are not a temporary structure, you are an eternal testimony. The number 444 is heaven's fingerprint on your rebuilding, proof that nothing broken stays wasted. The cracks became channels for light. The ruins became the birthplace of revelation. Every repetition of 444 is heaven whispering, I have not just restored you, I have reinforced you. What was once fragile is now sacredly unshakable, marked forever by divine craftsmanship. There are moments when the air feels different, when peace settles before explanation, when your spirit senses movement, even though nothing around you has changed. That's not imagination, it's alignment. Heaven is shifting the atmosphere around you, the same way a storm changes pressure before the rain falls. The spirit realm adjusts before manifestation arrives. What you're feeling is that shift. Heaven has been rearranging the unseen on your behalf. Angels are moving into position. What once resisted you is now being restructured to serve you. The delays that used to frustrate you were not denials, they were recalibrations. When the shift begins, things first appear to fall apart before they fall into place. But do not fear, divine order often hides beneath temporary disorder. For months, you've been sensing something coming, not in fear, but in expectation. You felt like heaven's wind has been circling, waiting for permission to release. And now that permission has been granted, the warfare you endured was proof that something precious was on the way. Heaven does not guard emptiness, it guards increase. Every unseen battle fought for your peace was not wasted. The resistance was the weight of breakthrough pressing against time. And now, the heavens are declaring, it is time. You may not hear trumpets, but your spirit knows. You can feel that strange mix of exhaustion and anticipation that always arrives before divine release. Heaven confirms this movement through the words in the book of Daniel, chapter 10, verse 12. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. End of quote. That verse is a window into what's happening around you now. Your prayers have been heard since the first day you whispered them. The delay wasn't in heaven's hearing, it was in the delivery. Angels have been battling through opposition to bring what you've been waiting for. The shift you sense is the sound of victory breaking through resistance. Sometimes heaven announces change, not through words, but through weight. You start to feel drawn away from certain people, places, or patterns. What used to feel comfortable suddenly feels heavy. That discomfort is not rejection, it's redirection. Heaven never moves you backward, it moves you deeper. The spiritual realm around you is no longer at rest, it's in rearrangement. Paths are clearing, obstacles are being moved, and things that once seemed impossible are aligning effortlessly. You don't need to strive for this, you only need to stay still enough to let it happen. The Spirit has been whispering. Don't panic in the shaking. This is preparation for placement. You are being positioned in places you didn't even know existed. But heaven did. The sudden changes in your environment are not coincidences. They're confirmations. Every season of shaking exposes what's not rooted and secures what is. The friendships that faded, the doors that closed, the desires that shifted, all of it was part of heaven's sorting. You can't carry everything into your next level. And heaven loves you too much to let unnecessary weights follow. The realm around you is alive with movement. Heaven's armies have stepped closer. You may feel emotional tides, waves of sensitivity, sudden moments of gratitude, or tears. That's your spirit responding to the nearness of change. Don't suppress it, sense it. Heaven is breathing close. It may not look like much now, just small shifts, quiet rearrangements, but trust this. The unseen is always louder than the visible. Heaven works from the inside out. The first thing it changes is not your situation, but your sight. You're learning to see through the lens of faith instead of fear, through promise instead of panic. The shift in the spirit realm is not random, it's rhythm. Every divine plan moves to heaven's tempo. You're walking into that rhythm now, the pace of grace, the flow of fulfillment. The winds that once scattered are now gathering. The chaos that once confused is now clearing. Heaven's movement is always purposeful. When the atmosphere shifts, it's not just around you, it's within you. You've been changed too deeply to live the same. The same heart that once trembled now trusts. The same eyes that once looked down now lift in faith. This is that moment where heaven's alignment becomes reality. The shift isn't coming, it has begun. The unseen has started to manifest. And what your faith built in silence will now stand in sight. You are walking through the wind of fulfillment. It may feel unsteady, but it's carrying you exactly where you were always meant to be. You've felt it, haven't you? That strange heaviness resting over your shoulders lately, not sorrow, not fatigue, but something sacred. It's the return of the mantle. Heaven has placed it back upon you. You may not have asked for it, but it found you again. Because what is divine never stays lost. You laid it down once, thinking you weren't worthy or ready, but heaven never revoked it. It simply waited until your heart could hold it without fear. The mantle does not arrive with ceremony. It comes quietly, like morning light slipping through curtains. It doesn't ask permission because it already belongs to you. Heaven does not forget the ones it marks. That's why the calling keeps circling back. It's not chasing you, it's claiming you. When you carried it before, it felt too heavy. You mistook responsibility for rejection, anointing for isolation. But heaven never meant to crush you, it meant to crown you. The weight of calling is not punishment, it's proof. The very pressure that once broke you has been reshaped into strength. What you couldn't carry then, you can now, not because it's lighter, but because you've grown stronger. You see, mantles are not garments of glamour, they are coverings of glory. They don't make you shine for attention, they make you burn for purpose. That's why the world misunderstood you. It saw the flame, but not the fire's origin. The mantle distinguishes you, not to make you better, but to make you useful. The Spirit reveals through the ancient story written in the second book of Kings, chapter 2, verse 13. Elisha picked up Elijah's cloak that had fallen from him and went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan. And that one act changed generations. Elisha didn't earn the mantle, he received it. It wasn't about ability, but availability. When Elijah's cloak fell, heaven wasn't losing power, it was multiplying it. The same pattern repeats now. The mantle you once dropped has fallen before you again, asking, will you pick it up this time? Heaven doesn't resend what it no longer intends to use. The return of your mantle is a divine declaration. The mission is still alive. Every delay, every detour, every season of silence was preparation for this very return. You've been refined, not replaced. The same fire that once frightened you now feels familiar because you finally understand its purpose. This mantle carries memory. It remembers your tears, your surrender, your near giving up moments. It was forged in your wilderness and anointed in your waiting. When heaven calls it back to you, it's not starting over, it's continuing the story you thought had ended. You may feel unworthy, but that's the sign you're ready. Heaven only trusts humility with holy weight. Pride drops mantles, surrender secures them. You no longer seek applause, you seek assignment. That shift in motive is what qualifies you for what's next. Don't mistake the mantle's return for nostalgia. This is not a repeat of the old season. It's an upgrade of purpose. The same calling. Yes, but with a deeper understanding. Evisa heart. Ashtidia hunt. Heaven is not asking you to relive your past. It's inviting you to redeem it. You are not the same vessel that once carried this weight. You've been tempered by trials, sharpened by solitude, and softened by grace. The mantle fits differently now, perfectly. It doesn't hang loosely in fear or cling tightly in pride. It rests on balance. The enemy tried to convince you that the mantle was gone, that your moment had passed. But heaven never archives what it anoints. The gifts and callings of God are irrevocable. You cannot out-sin, out-suffer, or outlast divine purpose. The moment you surrender again, the mantle returns, and the mission resumes. And though no one around you may notice, the spirit realm does. When you picked up your mantle again, heaven applauded in silence. Angels recorded your willingness. Demons retreated from your resolve. Because when a chosen one picks up what heaven placed, everything in the unseen adjusts. This return is sacred. It carries the scent of redemption. The very cloak that once slipped through your hands now rests upon your shoulders with peace. You will not run this time. You will rise. You will not question the weight. You will walk in it. The mantle is not for show, it's for service. It is the symbol of heaven's trust. Proof that what was once broken has become usable again. Wear it galley. Carry it boldly. And let it remind you daily, heaven's gifts never return void. There are moments when heaven pours through a voice, not to be heard, but to be felt. This is one of those moments. You've journeyed through silence, surrender, shaping, and now restoration. The mantle rests on your shoulders, and the air around you feels different, clearer, lighter, sacred. You may not realize it yet, but heaven has marked this season as one of release. You are no longer just a listener. You are now a carrier of the message itself. When God trusts someone with revelation, He also entrusts them with responsibility to keep the light alive, to pass the fire forward. And sometimes, that fire spreads not through sermons or songs, but through connection, through every heart that receives and shares. That's how divine messages travel, not by numbers, but by willingness. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 58, verse 10, "If you spend yourselves for the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in darkness, and your night will become like noonday." This verse captures the essence of heaven's rhythm giving, not out of pressure, but out of overflow. Light rises when love moves. Generosity turns midnight into morning. When you choose to like or share this message, it's not just an action, it's an echo. It's like striking flint in the dark, creating sparks that fly towards someone else's cold night. You may never see where the light lands, but heaven does. Each spark is counted. Each share is a bridge. Heaven walks across to reach another weary soul. When you leave a comment, it's not noise, it's resonance. Your words become pebbles dropped into a still pond, rippling beyond sight, touching shores you'll never stand on. And when you subscribe, it's not to follow a name, it's to stay tethered to a stream that keeps your own light flowing. This connection isn't digital, it's divine. Heaven uses simple tools to keep eternal truth moving. There is a beauty in such small gestures. The hand that presses share becomes the hand that extends heaven's reach. The one who writes a few words below becomes the living proof that the message landed where it was meant to. The one who subscribes keeps the flame from flickering out in the noise of the world. And then there is the quiet act of giving, the unseen offering, the secret generosity that fuels what others see. It's like pouring oil into a lamp that's still burning while the night deepens. You don't do it because someone asked. You do it because the light matters to you. That is what giving means in heaven's language: participation, not payment. When you give, whether through prayer, through kindness, or through supporting this voice, it's as if you're adding wood to a sacred fire. You may not feel the heat immediately, but the warmth spreads further than you think. The words that healed you become words that heal others because you help them travel. You're not being asked to do something transactional, you're being invited into something transformational. These are not requests, they are reminders that you are part of something larger, something living. Every act of sharing, subscribing, supporting, no matter how small, becomes a melody in the same divine song. It's the same way rivers feed oceans individually. They look small, but together, they sustain worlds. Your engagement, your attention, your giving, your voice, they all flow into this current of light, keeping it alive and moving. That's how heaven works, through collaboration, through love, disguised as simple action. If your spirit ever feels moved to give, let it be like breathing, natural, joyful, free. No one forces the wind to blow. It moves because that's its nature. When gratitude fills your heart, let it move like the wind, quietly, willingly, leaving growth wherever it passes. And if all you can give is presence, that too is holy. Your attention, your reflection, your amen. In silence, they are offerings in themselves. Heaven counts sincerity, not currency. Every time you respond, you strengthen the bridge between your heart and heaven's flow. This message, this space, this flame, it lives because hearts like yours choose to keep it alive. Like, share, comment if your heart whispers yes. Subscribe if your soul feels fed here. And if the Spirit nudges you to give, Do it not as duty, but as devotion. Every small act of light you release returns multiplied. Touching places your eyes may never see, but your spirit will one day recognize. Heaven doesn't measure your actions, it measures your alignment. And alignment feels like peace. You are not here by accident. You are part of this light, a keeper of it, a carrier of it. Let your presence here be proof that the fire found another faithful flame. There is a reason heaven sends the same message only twice. Grace repeats itself once, not forever. The second call is mercy. The third would be judgment. Heaven is patient, but it is not careless. When God speaks again, it is because He intends to move, and He will not wait indefinitely for permission. This is that moment, the point where decision and destiny meet. The first time the message came, it was an invitation. The second time, it became instruction. And now, heaven speaks not to persuade, but to finalize. What happens next will no longer depend on whether you hear it, will depend on whether you respond. Heaven's patience is long, but its timing is precise. The third time will not come. You can feel that urgency now, not panic, but clarity. Something inside you knows that this message carries finality. It's the last reminder before movement begins. The last knock before the door shifts. The Spirit is not threatening you, it's warning you, tenderly. If you wait too long, mercy turns into memory. God is not trying to scare you, He's trying to save you from spiritual numbness. You've been given too many chances to ignore the pull. Heaven's kindness has surrounded your hesitation long enough. The next season doesn't start until obedience begins. Heaven reveals this principle through the writings in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 30, verse 19. I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life, so that you and your descendants may live. That verse is not about fear, it's about freedom. The power of choice has always been yours. Heaven doesn't force alignment, it invites it. But every invitation has an expiration. Not because grace runs out, but because opportunities do. There are windows that close when their purpose is complete. You have stood long enough at the edge of almost. You've waited for perfect peace before you moved. But peace follows obedience. It doesn't precede it. Heaven's silence after this is not rejection, it's release. God will not keep repeating what you refuse to hear. He will move His plan forward with or without your participation. That is not punishment, it is purpose. Every chosen one reaches a moment when lingering becomes loss, when staying still no longer feels safe but suffocating. That's where you are now, the line between grace extended and grace exhausted. Heaven's hand is still stretched out, but it will not remain there forever. There's a quiet trembling in the atmosphere when mercy nears its limit. Not anger, compassion reaching its final expression. Heaven knows that continued delay leads to spiritual blindness, and blindness leads to bondage. The warnings don't come to scare you, they come to rescue you before numbness settles in. Heaven is whispering now with solemn tenderness. Move while you still can, not because the door will vanish, but because your heart might harden. Every time you delay, the echo grows fainter. The danger is not that God stops speaking, it's that you stop hearing. You have been entrusted with divine awareness, and that makes you accountable. To whom much is revealed, much is required. You've heard the voice twice, that's proof you are seen, chosen, and capable. But what you do with that knowing will define the rest of your journey. The third message will not come. Heaven will not repeat itself endlessly because love respects freedom. If you choose stillness now, heaven will honor it not in anger, but in silence. The sound of silence after grace is not peace, it's distance. This is the point of decision, not of emotion, but of alignment. You know enough to act, to change, to follow. Heaven has given you all the confirmation you asked for. The number, the dreams, the signs, the words, they've all been answers. What's left is your response. Heaven's voice will soon withdraw its repetition and replace it with realization. Everything you've heard until now will begin to manifest in proportion to your obedience. The same message will not come again, not because heaven has given up, but because it has finished giving. Mercy has spoken twice. The next sound will be movement, the unfolding of what you chose. Heaven has set before you two paths, to delay again or to decide. The third time will not come. The silence that follows obedience is peace. The silence that follows resistance is absence. One fills the room with grace, the other with echoes of what could have been. Heaven's patience ends not in anger, but in release. When mercy steps back, destiny steps forward. What you choose today will either bloom or break tomorrow's light. You've reached the point where the air feels still, but it's not emptiness, it's completion. The second message has done its work. Heaven has spoken, twice and clearly. And now the echo fades not in loss, but in fulfillment. When heaven repeats itself, it is never wasted sound, it is sacred sealing. The silence that follows is not absence, it's confirmation that the word has landed. You have walked through every layer of divine communication, the first awakening, the shaping, the rebuilding, the shifting, and now, the settling. This is where revelation turns into reality. Heaven doesn't just speak to be heard, it speaks to create. Each word sent into your life was a blueprint, and now the structure stands. You may not see it yet, but something in your spirit knows the change has already begun. Heaven doesn't shout when things are complete, it whispers. It doesn't celebrate loudly, it rests. When creation was finished, God didn't announce it with thunder, He blessed it with peace. That's what's happening around you now. The peace that feels unfamiliar is not emptiness, it's completion. There's a new clarity resting over your heart. What once felt heavy now feels holy. The same road that once seemed endless now carries direction. Heaven has closed the circle. The message that came twice was not a reminder, it was a realignment. Everything that was out of rhythm has been brought back into divine order. The Spirit confirms this through the words recorded in the book of Philippians. Chapter 1, verse 6. He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Oh, this is heaven's final assurance. What began in fire will not end in failure. What was started by divine hands will not be left unfinished. You are not being abandoned. You are being advanced. The pause you feel is not delay. It's the quiet before manifestation. Every chosen one reaches this point, the sacred stillness before the next unfolding. It's the space between what has been spoken and what is about to appear. You've been prepared for this moment all along. The second message wasn't to warn you, it was to ready you. You've outgrown the uncertainty that once defined you. Heaven does not repeat its voice indefinitely because mature faith no longer needs repetition. It recognizes resonance. You've learned to hear God, not through volume, but through vibration. You no longer need thunder to believe. You can trust the whisper. Now, the responsibility shifts from heaven's voice to your hands. What has been spoken must now be lived. The revelation becomes rhythm. The prophecy becomes practice. You are no longer waiting for a word. You are walking it out. Don't mistake this stillness for stagnation. The silence of heaven is the sound of manifestation unfolding. When the sculptor finishes shaping, the tools fall quiet. The stillness means the form is finished. What you've been shaped into is now ready to be revealed. There will be signs, subtle ones, that what was promised is beginning to take shape. Peace where there was once panic. Assurance where there was once anxiety. Joy without reason. That's how heaven confirms completion. Your journey has not been in vain. Every tear was instruction. Every loss was foundation. Every delay was direction. You were never wandering. You were being written. And now the author has placed the final period at the end of this chapter, not the end of your story, but the beginning of its unfolding. You may feel both light and unsure at the same time. That's what transition feels like when what was familiar fades. And what's next is still forming. Don't rush it. Let peace do its work. The same God who spoke will sustain. The word that came twice will continue to produce fruit long after the echo fades. This is what the end of divine instruction feels like: quiet, weightless, sacred. Heaven is not asking for anything more now. It has given all it needed to give. The rest will come through movement, through faith, through the unseen rhythm of obedience. The repetition was heaven's act of mercy. The silence that follows is heaven's act of trust. You've proven ready. You've endured the delay, survived the pruning, embraced the calling, and now you stand at the threshold of fullness. The message has come twice, once to awaken you, once to establish you. The third is not needed, because completion has been spoken. Heaven has signed your season with finality and peace. You don't need another confirmation. You are the confirmation. The word has taken root and become flesh in your decisions, your growth, your transformation. You are now the living evidence that when heaven speaks twice, something eternal takes form. The sound has ceased, but the story continues. Written not in the air, but in you. The message has finished, but the movement hasn't. Heaven never ends in silence. It ends in sending. And now, you are being sent, not with noise, but with knowing. The same light that awakened you through these words now rests in your hands, waiting to be carried further. If it has stirred something inside you, don't let it fade when the screen goes dark. When you like, you breathe wind into the flame. When you share, you give that wind direction. When you comment, you carve your name into the story. Heaven is still writing. Your words may seem small, but they ripple across unseen waters. Reaching hearts you'll never meet yet will one day recognize in eternity. And if you've found peace here, if something holy has moved through these lines and into your heart, then stay close. Subscribe not as a follower, but as a flame keeper. Stay connected to this space of light where heaven keeps whispering through simple words. Each time you return, the fire grows steadier. Some of you will feel a deeper pull, a quiet nudge to give, to pour back into the same light that poured into you. Do it only if your heart agrees. Giving is not currency, it's communion. Think of it as watering a tree whose shade once sheltered you. or adding oil to a lamp that guided you through your darkest corridor. That's how heaven sustains its light, through willing hands, not forced ones. Your presence, your response, your generosity, they are all echoes of gratitude. Every small act, whether a word, a share, or a seed sown in love, keeps this current of light flowing beyond this moment. Heaven moves through hearts that move freely. Like, share, comment, stay. And if your spirit whispers, yes, give, not out of duty, but out of delight, not because you must, but because you can. Somewhere, someone is waiting for the same flame that reached you today. Carry it forward. Let your light speak where words cannot. The message has reached you twice. Now, through you, it will reach someone else once more.